on Question Tuesday. And today we're going to talk a little college football first, and we're going to get into the NFL, talk a little Ravens as well, as we have two really good fan questions. And we'll get started with the first one. Before we get into it, though, if you want to get in on these questions, you know how to get at me on Twitter. NotBland21 is the handle. You can shoot me a question there or talk shop with me there. If you want to email the question because you don't have Twitter, you can email us at straightshootingst, that's all one, straightshootingst at gmail.com, and we'll be happy to put it on the show. And it can be whatever our slow day is. We're going to call it fan day. So without further ado, let's get into it. And our first question of the day comes from Keith Brill, and his question is about the Florida State football team, preferably Derrick, Nnadi, and his impact on the defensive line, and wants to know how they can fix that D a little bit, being that we've known that over the last couple weeks this team has struggled in that department. When you look at the numbers, they're allowing 28.9 points per game to the opponent. Now, this team's been able to score about 34, average of 34 points a game. But, in football, it's very difficult to always be outscoring the opponent. There were times this season where they were able to hold the opponent down. But in the bigger games, you look at the Mississippi's, the Louisville game where they got torched. You look at the South Florida game, the North Carolina game. They were unable to make the stops when necessary. Now, when we look at Derrick Nnadi's numbers, he's got 18 tackles on the year. He's got 2.5 sacks. Now, many will say that's just simply not enough. That's simply not enough for a guy with his talent and his ability. But let's remember what a defensive tackle does. And he's listed as nose guard. And sometimes in a 4-3, they do have a nose guard, but it's not like your nose guard in a typical 3-4 defense. But his job is to maintain the center of that defense, push the pocket, especially in the passing game, push the pocket into the quarterback and make life uncomfortable for the quarterback in the pocket, and make it difficult for him in that regard. Second, in the running game, is to maintain those gaps up the middle, allowing the linebackers to be able to clean up. And if he can get off a block, that's great. But his job is not necessarily to rush the passer. That's what you have the ends for. But his job is to collapse that pocket into the face of the quarterback. And he definitely does a pretty good job of that. And there's ways of getting guys more involved. You can bring a linebacker down, make the offensive guard choose who he's going to pick up. Maybe you can run some different stunts up front to get him loose, because he does have some great ability in attacking the quarterback. He's very strong. He can bull rush you real easily, and maybe you're not seeing that ability to get sacks from up the middle for the simple fact that maybe there's some work that needs to be done with his hands, being able to break loose from the block and break free, spin move, whatever the case may be up the front, to throw off that guard, throw off that center, whichever guy's picking him up there, and getting loose to be able to attack the quarterback a little bit more. Now, defensively for the Florida State Seminoles, this is something that has been a huge problem all season long. Now, granted, Wake Forest, they were able to hold them to 6. And then you have the 19 points, which was a close game against Miami, and obviously earlier in the season, it's Charleston Southern. So, what I've noticed in the bigger games, And I tell you, um, offensively, when they become stymied, when they become very sluggish in their approach, and there's a lot of three and outs going on, that defense is young. It gets tired very quickly. You know that watching college, it same applies anywhere, college, NFL. If your defense is out there too long and you playing against a high quality offense that has the ability to maybe go quick count, maybe they have a balanced attack and running the football effectively, and if they're gashing you and it opens up the pass, your defense is backpedaling and they're woofing on the sidelines, trying to get their breath out there on the field. Guys are trying to rotate in and out, and they're never getting a break when your offense continues to go three and out. And this is a conversation that I've had with a few Florida State fans here, and I believe that first and foremost with this young team, and I believe that they have talent from top to bottom. A lot of their backups as well are very talented. This is a young defense, though. Lots of sophomores and juniors on this team. Um, the way to combat that is that coaching needs to adjust to the talent pool that they have and the skill set that they have. A big problem in coaching, whether it's college football or NFL, um, guys are just bent on this is my system and this is what we run and we're going to run it no matter what. And it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't work that way all the time. And sometimes it works to a disadvantage for your team. Now, these guys may be skilled. They very well may be very well skilled, and they are. They have some talented corners, talented safeties. But there are some areas where they may be a little bit uh, not as great in. And for instance, if you have a team that's not very good playing man to man, well, you may throw in a man with a zone scheme that not only confuses the quarterback, but it gives the corners some help. Um, there's various ways of helping out your corners. But first and foremost is I see that there can be with the skill set of those guys up front, some kind of scheme drawn up to where they can be more creative and blitzing the quarterback, and running some more stunts with your linebackers or just running stunts up front to generate consistent pressure on the quarterback. Now, that pressure also has to be controlled because if you're reckless in pressuring the quarterback, it can be an issue in the running game as they just run right by your pass rushers. And the last thing you want to do is have your team looking like Bruce Smith and late in his career rushing right past the quarterback as he's running up the field. Uh, you don't want those guys looking like that because they will hand it off quickly on a draw, and that's 5 to 7 easy and possibly 10. But this team is talented on the right track. I just think there needs to be some adjustments in scheme. They can adjust in scheme. That's going to be a huge, huge plus for the players and the results on the field. Have to play to the strengths of your talent. Well, thank you so much for your question. Now to continue with our questions for Fan Tuesday, we have a question from James Lee, and he's a Ravens fan, and he wants to know what is the identity of the Ravens team today. And he says they've seemed to be playing down to their competition, and they hadn't really in the past, or never really passed it. That's a very good question. And first, to answer the first part of your question, answer that part about what their identity is. And we know in the past, the identity of this football team was the defense with Ray Lewis, Suggs, and the likes. Um, and they still got some studs back there, especially at the linebacker position. You look at Terrell Suggs is still there. His T Sizzle's not what he used to be, but he's still making plays out there. C.J. Mosley. You have Zach Orr. You have Elvis Dumerville back there, and they have some formidable talent coming off the bench. Cornerbacks and safeties aren't exactly what they used to be either. Um, but you do have the Eric Weddles, um, and you have Wright that's back there, and some guys that come off the bench, and they make some pretty decent plays. Um, but the identity of this ball club, it rests on the offense. And I know you're like, really? The offense? Yes. Because I think we've seen in games this season, uh, however the offense goes is how the team goes. You look at the first game against the Buffalo Bills. It was a low scoring game. They allowed 165 yards or 160 yards total on offense. The running game was paramount. Wasn't overwhelming, but they ran the ball for 83 yards, respectable. Pass for 225, one turnover there, but that's fairly balanced. Um, and then you have to look at the offensive side of the ball in the passing game, where the reasons why um, they decided to make a change from Mark Trestman to Marty Morningwig was the fact that at times they were very pass happy. And I think Baltimore Ravens fans would agree in the first half of the season, in a couple of those games, especially the couple of games they lost, even the one against the Buffalo Bills. They came out and were very pass happy. And that's not really the operation um, or how Joe Flacco works. Um, with a solid running game that's effective, it really opens up what Flacco does best, and that's play action. Whether it's to a guy like Pitta, or whether it's down the field, and to make plays to Steve Smith or Mike Wallace or Kamar Aiken or Pierman, whatever. These guys, his best football, and they pass the ball best when they're able to use play action. And their defense plays pretty well as well when they can sustain drives and they're not put out there on the field. When there's a balance there, um, they are pretty well effective in winning games. Now, what has been the problem with them as of late? You look at the Giants game, meltdowns late, not following through, and I mean the defense alone had turnovers of 3 in the Giants game, and they were unable to win that ball game. They had no turnovers. That's inconsistency with the offense, leaving the defense hanging out to dry, and not finishing drives with getting points. That's a problem. Uh, they had 98 yards rushing in that game last week. Again, in the Redskins game, they had 118 yards rushing. They had 306 total yards. Very balanced. 188 passing, 118 rushing. You think, man, they had 2 turnovers. Got to be able to win that ball game. Couldn't pull it out. Again, uh, inconsistencies in the offense, not finishing drives, not getting points. And I think that's your identity. It's not the defense, but it is the offense. And when the offense runs well, when they can be consistent running the football, and they can finish drives, not kicking field goals, but getting touchdowns, Baltimore can win the ball game. When it has to be on the defense's back and they spend too much time out there on that field, um, it has never voted well for this team. Look at the uh, Raiders game, losing by 1. You look at the Giants game. None of those have come and been well for the the Ravens. And the sad part about it is, in at least two out of the four games, two out of 5 games, they've had 3 turnovers. They've had at least 2 or more turnovers in 4 games. Those things have to translate into points. And if they want to not play down to their opponent, so to speak, they have to capitalize on the bonuses that they get, and they have to uh, finish drives when they have the ball and score points. That is imperative for this team to have full success. Again, if you're keeping and sustaining drives, you're keeping that opposing team's offense off the field, and you're keeping your defensive off the field, so they can come out and be fresh repeatedly and get after the quarterback, stay fired up, and be able to get more 3-and-outs and get more opportunities back for your offense. So that in itself is key, but they're sitting in a pretty spot right now, at 3-3, especially with Roethlisberger going down, in this division. It's going to be interesting coming down the stretch here. It's early in the season. Wouldn't be too upset, but if they want to take the next step, if they want to be able to grab this division, that's exactly what they're going to have to do, on the offensive side of the ball, to help equalize things out for this team. Well, we thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to this show, and we really appreciate you taking the time to tune in to Straight Shooting Sports Talk Podcast. If you have any questions, you have anything you want to talk about and hear talked about on this show, shoot us an email to straightshootingst@gmail.com. If you know how to get at me on Facebook, do that also. And if you just simply want to talk shop, Twitter at NotBland21 and all the other social medias, be happy to talk shop, talk football, talk basketball, whatever you want to talk about. We'll be happy to talk about it with you on those areas and on this show. Well, we thank you so much once again, and enjoy your afternoon. We are out of here.
Yeah! Crab cakes and football! That's what Maryland does!